Most people don't lose because life is too hard. They lose because they let the first moments of the day decide everything that follows. The battle isn't out there in the world. It's in your mind, in that silent hour before the noise begins. And that's exactly where victory is either claimed or surrendered. If your thoughts are weak, your entire day bends. If your mind is unclear, your actions follow in disarray. But if your mind is firm, if you train it like a weapon the moment you wake up, then no circumstance, no opinion, no pressure has the power to unseat you. Ask yourself right now, when you wake up, who's in charge? Your intention or the world? Because the truth is, the world is ready to hijack your thoughts. The moment your eyes open, notifications are waiting, doubts are waiting, the weight of yesterday is waiting. If you don't build a wall of discipline in that first hour, you'll spend the rest of the day chasing clarity you should have claimed at the start. And here's something to reflect on. What time is it where you are right now? Where are you listening from? Go ahead and drop it in the comments. Because no matter where you are or what hour it is, the mindset you choose to engage with now is already sculpting the version of you that shows up tomorrow. This isn't about some miracle morning or romantic idea of ritual. This is about dominance. Inner dominance. You get up and you grab the wheel, or you let the world drive for you. That's not poetic. That's practical. Start with this. Don't touch your phone. Don't check messages. Don't open the door to chaos. Instead, look inward. Set your direction before the world tells you who to be. Say out loud, yes, out loud, what you stand for today. Today I lead. Today I focus. Today I reject weak thoughts. And mean it. That's not motivation. That's structure. That's mental armor. If you think that sounds too simple, that's because you've been lied to. You've been sold complexity and comfort, as if those things ever built greatness. But look at the ones who win consistently. They're not guessing. They're not reacting. They're leading themselves every single morning, long before anyone sees the results. And if you're still letting your feet hit the floor without intention, you're not in control. You're already trailing. That's not harsh. That's clarity. Because the moment you open your eyes is not neutral. It's either a trigger for discipline or a permission slip for drift. Want a challenge? Take back your first hour. No phone, no distractions. Just your thoughts, your breath, your plan. Visualize what matters. Remind yourself why you're here. Decide who you are going to be before anyone tells you otherwise. That's not extra. That's essential. It's how warriors are made. This isn't about feeling good. It's about being dangerous to chaos. It's about showing up with precision while everyone else is still waking up foggy, reactive, soft. Not you. Not anymore. So what's the real work? Clean your space. Make your bed. Write your target down. Don't ask for inspiration. Be the cause of it. And if you feel resistance, good. That's your cue. That's the friction where strength is born. You don't need 10 new tools. You need one choice. Lead your mind before anything else touches it. And the ones who learn to do this, consistently, deliberately, become the kind of people who don't shatter when the world pushes. They move first. They move sharp. And they move with fire that doesn't need approval to keep burning. That's how the day is won. Not with hope. Not with hype. With sharpness. With ownership. With that first uncompromising hour. Because if your day starts passive, your decisions follow suit. And if your day starts strong, then everything, even setbacks, bends around that unshakable momentum. That's how champions live. And that's why, Before you scroll, before you speak, before you step, you think. Next, we go deeper into your focus. How to protect it like it's your life's currency, because it is. Focus isn't something you have. It's something you guard. It's not a gift. It's a battlefield. And every notification, every distraction, every careless conversation is a bullet flying toward your clarity. If you don't protect it with intensity, it will bleed out before noon. Let's be real. Most people aren't losing because they lack time. They're losing because they waste it in tiny fragments. A quick scroll, a quick check, a harmless click. But add that up over a day, over a week, over a year, and you've scattered your attention so thin that you've forgotten what power feels like. You want to win? Then stop giving your mind to everything that asks for it. This world isn't short on distractions. It's engineered for them. It's built to fracture your focus and keep you docile. Algorithms aren't neutral. Notifications aren't harmless. They're hooks. Hooks that pull your attention away from what actually matters. So if you want to do anything meaningful, build something, change something, become something, you need to make a ruthless decision. Who gets access to your mind and who doesn't? This is about boundaries, not just with people, but with impulses. If your phone controls your eyes, it controls your brain. And if your brain is hijacked, it's not working for you. It's working for everything else. So start with your environment. That buzzing phone? Turn it off. That endless feed? Log out. That tab you keep switching to? Close it. Your future doesn't live in those distractions. It lives in the deep work you keep avoiding. And don't just do this once. Make it a rule, a non-negotiable. Set time blocks where nothing gets in. No messages, no updates. Just you, your work, and your intention. That's how momentum is built. Through uninterrupted forward movement. Here's the hard truth. 99% of the things trying to steal your attention aren't urgent. They're just loud. They wear the costume of importance, but underneath, they're empty. If it's not moving you toward your goal, it's moving you away from it. There is no neutral. Some people call this harsh, but you don't need to be soft to be kind. You need to be sharp to be effective. And protecting your focus isn't selfish, it's responsible. You weren't born to be available to the entire world 24/7. You were born to build something real. And real things don't get built in a sea of noise. So make space, not just physical space, but mental, emotional, energetic space. Clean your room, clear your screen, cancel what doesn't align. Your outer environment reflects your inner one. If your desk is chaotic, chances are your thoughts are too. And if people don't understand your silence, your boundary, your refusal to reply immediately, good. Let them misunderstand. You don't owe constant access. You owe your best energy to what matters. The rest can wait. This is about respect for your time, for your goals, for your growth. The same way you wouldn't let a stranger walk into your house, don't let every impulse walk into your head. You're not a doormat for distraction. So build your fortress, not out of fear, but out of focus. Decide what deserves your energy and what doesn't. And here's the key. Enforce that decision. No exceptions. If a behavior pulls you backward, it goes. No explanation needed. Some conversations don't deserve a reply. Some notifications don't deserve a glance. And some opportunities aren't really opportunities. They're detours. You have to learn to say no without guilt, because every yes is a withdrawal from your mental bank. And when you train your mind to stay with the task, to sit with discomfort, to resist the urge to drift, that's when growth ignites. That's when you start compounding progress. You're not just busy anymore. You're effective. You're not reacting. You're creating. You're not scattered. You're locked in. That's the shift. That's the difference between people who spin in circles and those who break through walls. It's not luck. It's not genius. It's focus. The rare kind. The protected kind. The kind you choose on purpose. So look at your habits. Where is your focus leaking? Who or what is pulling your attention without permission? Write it down. Call it out. Then make a choice. Will you keep living in fragments, or will you claim back your mind? Because your life expands or contracts based on what you give your attention to. If you water weeds, weeds grow. If you water roots, your future grows. Choose wisely, and as you do, your brain begins to cooperate. It stops begging for dopamine. It starts aligning with discipline. That's how clarity becomes your baseline. Not an accident, but a result of structure. Protect your focus like it's your oxygen. Because in a distracted world, attention is the final currency of the powerful. And once you own it, you own everything that follows. So next, we level up. It's time to move beyond comfort and forge strength in the fire of discomfort. Deliberately, daily, without apology. Comfort is a liar. It whispers that you're fine where you are. It convinces you to delay, to shrink, to negotiate with your potential. But if you listen long enough, you'll look up one day and wonder why nothing has changed. Why your life feels small, soft, and stuck. Growth doesn't come from ease. It comes from tension. And the people who become unbreakable aren't born that way. They train it by doing one simple thing: facing discomfort on purpose. Not once a week, not when they feel like it. Every single day. This is the code. Do the thing you least want to do, but most need to. Over and over, until your mind stops fearing it and starts expecting it. Because comfort isn't the goal. Growth is. So let me be clear. You will not become stronger by avoiding the cold. You will not develop resilience by skipping the hard conversations. You will not earn toughness by sleeping in, canceling plans, or hiding behind distractions. Toughness is built in the moment you don't want to move, but move anyway. When you feel that pull toward the easy path and choose the harder one, not for the result, but for what it builds in you. Take Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor. He ruled the Roman Empire, battled disease, war, betrayal, and still wrote to himself every day about discipline, struggle, and embracing what's hard. He didn't avoid it. He welcomed it. Because he understood. Difficulty isn't the obstacle, it's the path. And you? You're not here to be comfortable. You're here to rise. Start now. Choose the harder version of what you're about to do. Turn the cold water all the way. Finish the set even when your body screams. Pick up the phone and speak the truth. Wake up before the excuses do. Each time you do, you add weight to your will. You stretch the container of who you are. And little by little, your identity starts to shift. You stop avoiding what's uncomfortable. You start chasing it. And that shift, that's everything. Because now you're not reacting. You're deciding. You're not waiting for strength. You're building it. You don't need a mountain to climb. Start with what's right in front of you. That overdue task. That lingering conversation. That project you keep postponing. It's not about scale. It's about decision. Decision that says, I choose growth. Not when it's easy, but because it's hard. Because here's the truth. The hard things don't get easier. You get stronger. Your nervous system adapts. Your threshold expands. What used to paralyze you becomes your warm-up. What used to break you becomes your training. That's the power of repetition. That's how you become someone who walks into pressure, not with panic, but with purpose. And when you do this daily, small, deliberate acts of discomfort, you start to trust yourself. Not because things are going well, but because you know you can handle when they don't. You become solid, and no, you won't always get it right. You'll skip a day. You'll avoid a challenge. But that's not failure. That's another rep. That's another test. The real question isn't, did you fall? It's, did you get back to the fire? Because growth isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. Comfort will always be there. It will wait for you like an old friend with soft excuses. But every time you sit down beside it, you lose a piece of your edge. That edge is what separates the average from the exceptional. It's what makes some people dependable and others unpredictable. It's the difference between looking the part and living the part. So stop negotiating with ease. Stop waiting for the perfect mood. Show up when it's inconvenient. Especially then. That's where the fire is. And here's something else most people miss. Discomfort reveals you. It doesn't lie. When the pressure's on, your excuses surface. Your stories come out. But that's not a bad thing. That's the mirror. That's where real change begins. Not in pretending you're strong, but in seeing where you're not and deciding to fix it. Your strength isn't built when you feel amazing. It's built in the middle of doubt, in the heat of resistance, in the choice to lean in instead of check out. So start with one thing today. One small discomfort. Choose it, enter it, and finish it. Then do it again tomorrow, and again after that. Until discomfort becomes your compass. Not your enemy, but your signal. The place where you know, this is where the real work is. And when that becomes normal, when facing the hard thing is just who you are, you become unstoppable. Because no matter what life throws at you, your mind doesn't flinch. It doesn't wait. It responds. And that response is trained, not gifted. Built, not inherited. Earned, not borrowed. Next, we turn to the voice you use with yourself, the promises you keep or break, and how your integrity becomes your strongest identity. Your voice is your contract. Every word you speak is either building your foundation or cracking it. And too many people live in contradiction. They speak with strength, but act with hesitation. They promise loudly, but deliver little. And in that space between their words and their actions, trust dies. Not just trust from others, trust in themselves. Here's the truth. If your mouth moves faster than your feet, your confidence will never catch up. It doesn't matter what you say if your actions don't echo it. Say what you mean what you say, and most importantly, do what you said you would do. That's the blueprint. That's how identity is formed. You don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be consistent. Because every time you break your word, even in private, you chip away at your own self-respect, and it starts to show, not in your resume, not in your posts, but in your posture, your presence, the way you enter a room without certainty. And it's not because you're incapable. It's because you haven't trained yourself to believe your own voice. That has to change. So from this moment forward, make this your rule. Don't speak what you won't live. If you say you'll wake up early, wake up early. If you say you'll start that project, start it. If you say you'll stop a habit, kill it. Don't leave your words hanging in the air like broken promises. Tie them down with action. Cement them in movement. Look at people who have real presence. Not loud presence, solid presence. The kind that doesn't need to convince you of anything. You trust them without explanation. Why? Because their words and actions are married. There's no gap, no performance, just alignment. That kind of alignment creates a different kind of power. Quiet, immovable, respected. It's what built leaders like Nelson Mandela, whose time in prison didn't erase his convictions, but deepened them. He didn't preach freedom and then choose comfort. He lived what he spoke, even in chains, especially in chains, and the world saw it. Not because he shouted, but because he showed. You don't need a stage to build integrity. You just need a mirror. And that mirror? It's watching every day. Every time you say, "I'll do it later," and you don't. Every time you promise and postpone. Every time you commit but flinch when it's inconvenient. That's where your character is keeping score. Quietly, relentlessly. But here's the opportunity. You can rebuild trust. You can start now. Not by talking more, but by saying less and doing more. Let your consistency become your volume. Let your actions be the proof. You don't need to convince anyone of who you are. You need to convince yourself. And that doesn't happen with hype. It happens with follow-through. Daily. Especially when it's hard. There's a reason military units say, discipline equals freedom. It's because they've seen what happens when words meet action. Not once. Repeatedly. Without excuse. Without explanation. And when you live like that, something changes in you. You don't flinch when challenged. You don't fold when plans shift. You don't panic when pressure rises. Why? Because you've trained your system to trust you, to rely on your own word like it's law. This applies everywhere. In your career, your health, your relationships, your inner world. If your words fluctuate with your moods, you'll never gain real traction. But if you decide that your promises are non-negotiable, your life starts to stabilize. Stop saying yes when you mean no. Stop agreeing just to avoid discomfort. Stop pretending to commit when you're already halfway out. That kind of living drains you. It creates mental clutter. It turns simple choices into inner chaos. But when your yes is yes and your no is no, you free up energy. You become lighter, more precise, more powerful. Start small. Don't try to fix every broken promise at once. Just pick one and follow through. Today, no delay, no drama, just delivery. Do it. Then pick another. And when you fail, and you will, own it. Not with guilt, not with excuses, just clarity. I missed. Here's how I'll fix it, then fix it. That's how trust is restored. That's how integrity becomes your baseline. Eventually, you'll stop needing reminders. You'll stop needing motivation. Your standard will carry you. That's the point. Because the most dangerous person in the room isn't the loudest. It's the one whose word is iron, who says little but does much, who doesn't need to be believed, because they've already proven it to themselves. So let this be your shift. Speak less, act more, and make every word cost something. If it's not backed by action, it doesn't leave your lips. Next, we move deeper into your personal code. Not just what you say, but how you complete, finish, and close every loop you open, regardless of how you feel. Starting is seductive. It comes with a rush. Ideas, motivation, the thrill of possibility. But that thrill fades, and what's left is the work, the grind, The moments when no one's watching and nothing feels exciting. That's where most people quit. And that's where the few who win keep going. You don't rise by beginning. You rise by finishing. Anyone can declare a goal. Anyone can make a plan. But the difference, the real separation, happens in the follow-through. When it's late, when you're tired, when results are invisible, that's the test. And that's when you either train your brain to complete or to quit, because your brain keeps score. If you let yourself stop halfway often enough, it becomes a reflex, a muscle memory of quitting. A subconscious permission slip that says, we never really needed to finish this anyway. And here's the problem. That habit bleeds into everything. You don't just quit workouts, you quit relationships, routines, responsibilities. You start to identify as the person who tries hard, but never quite makes it stick. That ends now. From this point forward, make finishing your standard, not your exception. Even the small things, especially the small things. If you begin a task, complete it. If you say yes, follow through. Even if it's boring, even if it's tedious, even if no one will ever see the result, because you will see it. You are the one who feels the weight of things left undone. That silent guilt, that quiet erosion of self-belief. And every time you finish something hard, even when you don't feel like it, you reclaim that power. This isn't about perfection. You don't need to sprint. You don't need to win awards. You just need to cross the line. Start with the dishes. Start with your email. Start with the last set of reps. These tiny completions add up. They train your nervous system to push one more step, one more breath, one more page. And over time, that builds a foundation of follow-through that nothing can shake. Think of Kobe Bryant. He wasn't known just for talent, but for relentless repetition. Finishing drills, finishing shots, finishing practices when the lights were off and everyone else had gone home. That's what made him lethal. Not raw skill, but the standard he refused to drop, even in private. You can build that, not by mimicking effort, but by installing a rule. I finish what I start. And yes, there will be days when quitting seems reasonable. You'll tell yourself the timing isn't right, that it's not worth it, that you'll come back later. But later is a liar. Later is just another way to say never. So catch the thought, interrupt it, and act. When your brain says, you've done enough, say, I'll stop when it's done. When it whispers, no one will notice, say, I notice. When it begs for ease, reply, I don't train to be soft. That's not ego, that's identity. And the more you finish, the more your brain cooperates. It starts to believe, we're the kind of person who sees things through. And that belief carries you when motivation disappears. It's what wakes you up. It's what keeps you sharp. It's what makes others rely on you, even when you haven't said a word. Because the world recognizes integrity, not in speeches, but in patterns, in delivery, in consistency. You don't need to announce what you're working on. Just finish it. Let your output speak for you. Let your results replace your explanations. And here's something most people don't understand. The boring tasks, the repetitive ones, that's the gym where greatness is built. Not in the big wins, but in the mundane moments when you choose to show up anyway. So audit your life. What have you started but not finished? What projects are half complete? What goals have you spoken but not acted on? Make a list. No judgment, just truth. Then pick one and close the loop. Today, even if it's sloppy, even if it's slow, just finish. Because each time you do, you get stronger. Not just in productivity, but in self-trust. And that trust, it's your greatest asset. It's what makes future tasks feel possible. It's what silences doubt. And if you fail, if you slip, don't abandon ship. Don't label yourself broken. Just return, reset, restart. Again and again. That's not weakness. That's what discipline looks like in real time. Over time, you'll start to notice a shift. You won't need to talk about your goals as much. You won't need to explain your process. People will feel the difference. Your presence will change. Not because you're louder, but because you're solid. Solid people don't need to announce their work. They become the result of their work. So if you're tired of quitting, stop now. Make one decision. I don't stop until it's done. Not because it's glamorous, but because it's who I am. Next, we go inside the storm. What to do when the plan falls apart, when the pressure peaks, and how your mindset must lead when everything else is crumbling. Everything feels easy when it's working, when the schedule holds, when the results appear, when the energy is high and the road is straight. But that's not where strength is built. That's not where your real training happens. Real training begins when the plan collapses, when the momentum vanishes, when your back hits the wall and you hear the voice that says, maybe this isn't for you. That's the moment. The one that separates the driven from the drifted. The one that tells you exactly what kind of mind you've built or haven't. Because how you think when things go wrong determines how far you'll go. Not what you believe when it's easy. What you believe when nothing makes sense. When the path vanishes. When your expectations dissolve into dust. You don't control the storm, but you do control your stance inside it. And that's why this is the turning point for most people. Not because they don't have the skill, but because they never trained their mind to respond with structure instead of emotion. They panic, they complain, they look for blame. And that cycle doesn't build progress, it builds paralysis. So let's make this clear. When adversity strikes, your first move is not to solve the problem. Your first move is to check your thinking. Because if your thoughts spiral, your choices will too. If you feed fear, fear grows. If you feed doubt, doubt takes over. But if you hold the line, if you pause, reset, and refocus, you take back control even when everything else feels uncontrollable. That's what mental toughness looks like in action. It's not blind positivity, it's constructive clarity. The discipline to pause long enough to ask the right question. What's still in my control? That's your anchor. That's your entry point back into momentum. Because the moment you shift from why is this happening to me to what do I still control, you move from victim to leader. And that shift rewires everything. Take Admiral James Stockdale, prisoner of war for over 7 years in Vietnam. Tortured, isolated, broken physically, but mentally sharp. Why? Because he lived by what's now called the Stockdale paradox. Face the brutal facts, but never lose faith in your ability to prevail. That paradox is your armor. Acknowledge the pain, see the problem, but refuse to surrender your direction. So when things break, pause, breathe, ask, what's real here? What's story? Most of the chaos is internal. Most of the storm is your imagination inflamed by emotion. Filter it. Remove exaggeration. Then respond. This doesn't mean you won't feel frustration, sadness, fear. It means you won't let those feelings dictate your identity or trajectory. You're allowed to be human. You're just not allowed to stay stuck. And that requires a system, a personal protocol for when everything goes sideways. You can't invent your mindset in the middle of a meltdown. You build it now. in the small daily reps. So when pressure spikes, you already know the rules. No negative self-talk, no emotional decisions, no blaming, no quitting. Only structure, only forward. Even if it's slow, that's not suppression, that's strategy. Because most people fail not because of what happened, but because they collapsed mentally in response. The situation was tough, yes, but the story they told themselves made it unbearable. Your job is to edit that story in real time, to replace "I'm done" with "I'm adapting," to replace "this always happens" with "this is training," to replace "I can't" with "one step at a time." You are not your circumstances. You are not your setbacks. You are your strategy in the face of them. So create one. Have a go-to phrase, a grounding ritual, a reminder of your direction, something you grab when everything else feels unstable. That's how champions hold the line. Not by removing pain, but by building anchors they can trust under pressure. This is where you learn to shift from reaction to response, from storm to signal, from chaos to clarity. And every time you do, your confidence grows. Not because life got easier, but because you got more composed, more capable, more unshakable. That's what people feel when they meet someone with real presence. It's not charm, it's calm. A steadiness that says, no matter what happens, I'll navigate it. Not from ego, from evidence. Evidence you've gathered by choosing structure in the storm. So if you're in it now, if things are broken, uncertain, falling apart, good. You're in the arena. You're in the fire that forges the ones who lead. And your only job is this: don't collapse. Compose. Let go of needing it to be easy. Let go of waiting for ideal conditions. Let go of the lie that strength comes when everything lines up. Strength is born in the moment you breathe, recenter, and decide again. Even here. Especially here. Next, we sharpen that response even further. How to remain calm under pressure. Not by chance, but by training it daily until it becomes your default. Pressure isn't the enemy, panic is. Most people feel pressure and immediately surrender to it. They tense up, their thoughts race, their breathing shortens, their decisions become erratic. And in those moments, they don't just lose focus, they lose themselves. But it doesn't have to be that way. Calm under pressure isn't a gift. It's a skill, one you train like a muscle, one that grows not in silence, but in resistance. So understand this: you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And your system in pressure, your default, has to be calm clarity, built through deliberate exposure, repetition, choice. When the heat rises, what does your mind do? That's not a rhetorical question. You need to know. Because the battlefield is real, the stakes are real. And if your internal world spirals every time life turns up the intensity, you'll never be ready when it matters most. Start small. Next time you're late, slow down your thoughts. Next time someone cuts you off, control your breathing. Next time plans collapse, notice the urge to react, then choose not to. These are your reps. This is your gym. Because if you can't control your emotions in the small moments, you won't control them when the real storm hits. Calm isn't passivity, it's control. It's being able to stand in chaos and not lose direction. It's the mind that says, this moment is loud, but I don't have to be. Look at elite performers, surgeons, special forces, top athletes. When pressure spikes, their bodies might tremble, but their minds stay locked. Not by accident, by training, over and over, until the storm comes, and they don't flinch. That can be you. That must be you. Because panic doesn't just waste energy, it makes mistakes. And mistakes under pressure are costly. So your job isn't to remove pressure. Your job is to operate within it. This means learning your triggers. Who rattles you? What situations make your chest tighten? What words or circumstances tip you toward reaction? Name them, study them, not to avoid, but to prepare. Because once you can see the pattern, you can break it. Let's make it practical. When pressure shows up, pause, count your breath, anchor yourself. Say, "This is pressure, not destruction." Then move. Don't wait for the anxiety to leave. Move with it. Calm is not the absence of stress. It's the presence of awareness. The space between stimulus and response. And you build that space by choosing it again and again. It doesn't have to be perfect. You'll still feel adrenaline. You'll still hear the internal noise. But you'll learn not to follow it. You'll learn to let it pass like traffic, while you remain at the center, observing, choosing, acting. Think of someone like Captain Chesley Sully Sullenberger, landing a failing plane on the Hudson River. No simulator, no script, just one shot and a calm mind. That calm saved lives. That calm wasn't luck. It was decades of training his nervous system to prioritize clarity over chaos. Now, you're probably not landing planes, but you are steering your life. And when your life is on the line, goals, decisions, relationships, moments that matter, you don't need hype. You need steadiness. You need precision of thought. And that comes from practice. Not from waiting until everything collapses, but from building the habit now. Daily, in traffic, in setbacks, in awkward conversations, in failures. That's your training ground. So when the real moment comes, the job interview, the fight, the diagnosis, the loss, you're not new to pressure. You're fluent in it, and you won't crack. You won't lash out. You won't freeze. You'll breathe. You'll assess. You'll lead. Not because it's easy, but because it's who you are now. That calm, it spreads. People feel it. They trust it. In a world full of noise, calm becomes presence. It becomes leadership. Not by title, but by behavior. And when your calm mind meets pressure, you don't just survive, you command. So embed it deep. No matter what comes, I stay calm long enough to think. Not I don't feel pressure, not I never get triggered, but I choose how I respond. That choice is your edge. And once you can hold that line under pressure, we move to the next challenge. When your old habits come knocking, how to face them without flinching and build a new identity in the space between temptation and choice. Old habits don't die on your timeline. They don't disappear just because you declared a new goal. They linger, they wait, and they strike not when you're strong, but when you're tired, stressed, or distracted. That's when the old voice whispers, "Just this once." That whisper is a test. And if you're not ready, you'll follow it. Not because you're weak, but because it's familiar. Because that behavior, that loop, that shortcut has been wired into you through years of unconscious repetition. But here's the shift. The goal isn't to fight your old habits. The goal is to replace them consciously, consistently, and without apology. Your brain doesn't delete patterns, it overwrites them. So every time your old self shows up, the version of you that scrolls, procrastinates, lashes out, numbs out, that's your signal to act. Not with shame, not with guilt, but with awareness. Because you are not your habits. You are your choices in response to them. Start there. Recognize the pattern. Pause. Don't argue. Don't explain. Just interrupt it. Do something different. Something better. Something that aligns with the future you say you want. That's how you reclaim control. Not with willpower alone, but with replacement, with redirection, with ritual. You can't just say no to a bad habit. You have to say yes to something stronger. If you tend to escape into distraction, replace it with movement, with writing, with silence. If your habit is negative thinking, replace it with neutral observation. Catch it, label it, challenge it. If your default is delay, replace it with a micro-action. 1 minute, 1 step, 1 sentence. You don't have to conquer the old self all at once. You just need to starve it long enough for the new self to grow roots. And every time you do, every time you choose the better path, you send a signal to your brain. This is who we are now, not who I want to be someday. Now, you build new identity not in declarations, but in decisions. The small, quiet, consistent ones you make when nobody is watching. And yes, you'll slip. You'll feel the pull. You'll fall into the old loop. That's not failure. That's friction. That's the resistance that makes you stronger if, and only if, you respond with speed. Don't wait for the shame spiral. Catch it fast. Course correct. Recenter. Move. That's where real change lives. Not in never slipping, but in never sitting in the slip. Growth doesn't wait for Monday. It begins the moment you return to alignment. And understand this: your habits aren't just behaviors. They're portals to identity. When you pick up your phone instead of picking up your vision, that's identity. When you sleep through the alarm after swearing you wouldn't, that's identity. When you choose distraction over discipline, you're casting a vote. So cast better votes, daily, relentlessly. Stack wins, celebrate progress. And most of all, protect your rituals like they're sacred, because they are. The small things, the glass of water, the walk, the journal, the phone put face down during focus hours. These are not hacks. They're anchors. They're the rails that guide the train of your life. And when the old version of you tries to creep back in, because it will, you don't fight it with force. You fight it with decision, with the calm, firm reminder. That version of me doesn't lead anymore. Not with emotion, but with evidence, with the track record you're building every day. So keep building. Build the morning that reflects your values. Build the evening that resets your nervous system. Build the breaks that restore you, not break you. Your future depends on what you're repeating, not what you're dreaming or even planning, but what you're actually doing. And if what you're doing is tied to the past, you'll relive it. But if what you're doing is anchored to the new, you'll rise. So today, choose better. Not perfectly, just better, over and over, until better becomes natural, and natural becomes identity. That's how transformation happens. Not with fanfare, but with quiet, invisible, repeated acts of self-leadership. Next, we go deeper into the integrity of the unseen, what it means to do the right thing when no one's clapping, and how private victories shape public legacy. The real test of strength doesn't come with applause. It comes in silence. Anyone can do the right thing when eyes are watching, when validation is near, when praise is guaranteed. But that's not character. That's performance. And performance fades when the crowd disappears. What defines you is what you do when no one's there to witness it. Do you hold the standard when no one checks? Do you push through the final rep when no one's counting? Do you clean up, finish, follow through, just because it's who you are? That's where legacy is built, not in spotlight, but in shadow. Because here's the truth. You're always being watched, not by them, by you. And your inner witness remembers everything. Every promise made and broken, every task avoided, every time you pretended effort when your heart wasn't in it. Your identity isn't shaped by what others think of you. It's shaped by the record your mind keeps, day after day. So ask yourself, Are you living like someone you respect? Because if the only time you show up fully is when there's recognition, you're not building discipline. You're building dependency. And dependency on praise is weakness disguised as work ethic. Cut that pattern. Start doing the right thing simply because it's the right thing. Pick up what you dropped. Finish what you started. Tell the truth, even when lying would be easier. Keep your word, especially when it's inconvenient. These are the invisible wins that no one sees. And yet, they're the ones that matter most. Because they build your spine, your sense of certainty, your inner yes that echoes louder than any applause ever could. Consider the greats, those who moved the world. They weren't consistent because of cameras or credit. They were consistent because they had to be. Because their standard wouldn't let them do otherwise. Take Viktor Frankl, imprisoned in Nazi concentration camps, stripped of dignity, control, and comfort. And yet, he refused to surrender his internal code. He kept his integrity not for reward, but because that was all he had left. That choice, the choice to maintain his values in hell, is what made him indestructible. You won't face that level of hardship, but you'll face your own versions. The day no one sees you keep your promise. The morning you rise without motivation. The moment you show kindness with no return. Those are your tests, not dramatic, not public, but critical. Because when your actions are consistent in silence, something powerful happens. You become reliable. To others, yes, but more importantly, to yourself. And that reliability, it becomes your foundation, the place you stand on when everything else shakes. So build in silence, push in solitude, grow in the shadows. Let others chase claps. You chase completion. Let others post the highlight reel. You stack real habits. Let others quit when no one's looking. You show up anyway, not because it's glamorous, because it's right. And when you slip, and you will, you correct. Fast. You don't wait to be called out. You call yourself out. You lead yourself back into alignment. That's discipline. That's maturity. That's leadership. Because you don't need attention to perform when you've chosen to live by principle. You don't need a schedule to act with urgency when your standard lives inside you. Most people waste years chasing approval. But approval is temporary. Integrity is eternal. So while others fluctuate with the tides of opinion, you build something stronger, something unshakable, a code, a reputation with yourself that says, I do the right thing, even when it's quiet, especially when it's quiet. And that reputation bleeds into everything. You walk differently. You speak with conviction. You command respect, not by demanding it, but by embodying it. You stop needing to prove. You start becoming the proof. And one day, you'll look back at a trail of small, private victories and realize they weren't small at all. They were everything. They were the bricks in the wall of your character. So from this moment on, remember, what you do in silence is who you are. And who you are in silence becomes what the world feels, long before they see it. Next, we simplify, back to basics. Because mastery isn't about the next new trick. It's about doing the fundamentals so well, so often, they become your second skin. The real test of strength doesn't come with applause. It comes in silence. Anyone can do the right thing when eyes are watching, when validation is near, when praise is guaranteed. But that's not character. That's performance. And performance fades when the crowd disappears. What defines you is what you do when no one's there to witness it. Do you hold the standard when no one checks? Do you push through the final rep when no one's counting? Do you clean up, finish, follow through just because it's who you are? That's where legacy is built. Not in spotlight, but in shadow. Because here's the truth. You're always being watched. Not by them, by you. And your inner witness remembers everything, every promise made and broken, every task avoided, every time you pretended effort when your heart wasn't in it. Your identity isn't shaped by what others think of you. It's shaped by the record your mind keeps, day after day. So ask yourself, are you living like someone you respect? Because if the only time you show up fully is when there's recognition, you're not building discipline. You're building dependency. And dependency on praise is weakness disguised as work ethic. Cut that pattern. Start doing the right thing simply because it's the right thing. Pick up what you dropped. Finish what you started. Tell the truth, even when lying would be easier. Keep your word, especially when it's inconvenient. These are the invisible wins that no one sees. And yet, they're the ones that matter most. Because they build your spine, your sense of certainty, your inner yes that echoes louder than any applause ever could. Consider the greats, those who moved the world. They weren't consistent because of cameras or credit. They were consistent because they had to be, because their standard wouldn't let them do otherwise. Take Viktor Frankl, imprisoned in Nazi concentration camps, stripped of dignity, control, and comfort. And yet, he refused to surrender his internal code. He kept his integrity not for reward, but because that was all he had left. That choice, the choice to maintain his values in hell, is what made him indestructible. You won't face that level of hardship, but you'll face your own versions. The day no one sees you, keep your promise. The morning you rise without motivation. The moment you show kindness with no return. Those are your tests. Not dramatic, not public, but critical. Because when your actions are consistent in silence, something powerful happens. You become reliable. To others, yes, but more importantly, to yourself. And that reliability, it becomes your foundation. The place you stand on when everything else shakes. So build in silence, push in solitude, grow in the shadows. Let others chase claps. You chase completion. Let others post the highlight reel. You stack real habits. Let others quit when no one's looking. You show up anyway, not because it's glamorous, because it's right. And when you slip, and you will, you correct. Fast. You don't wait to be called out. You call yourself out. You lead yourself back into alignment. That's discipline. That's maturity. That's leadership. Because you don't need attention to perform when you've chosen to live by principle. You don't need a schedule to act with urgency when your standard lives inside you. Most people waste years chasing approval. But approval is temporary. Integrity is eternal. So while others fluctuate with the tides of opinion, you build something stronger, something unshakable, a code, a reputation with yourself that says, I do the right thing, even when it's quiet, especially when it's quiet. And that reputation bleeds into everything. You walk differently, you speak with conviction, you command respect, not by demanding it, but by embodying it. You stop needing to prove. You start becoming the proof. And one day, you'll look back at a trail of small, private victories and realize they weren't small at all. They were everything. They were the bricks in the wall of your character. So from this moment on, remember, what you do in silence is who you are. And who you are in silence becomes what the world feels, long before they see it. Next, we simplify, back to basics. Because mastery isn't about the next new trick. It's about doing the fundamentals so well, so often, they become your second skin. Mastery is repetition. Not reinvention, not novelty, not chasing the next shiny technique. It's the relentless commitment to the basics. Done so consistently, so deliberately, they etch themselves into who you are. Most people don't fail because they don't know what to do. They fail because they stop doing what works. They get bored. They chase stimulation. They confuse movement with progress. And in doing so, they abandon the very foundation that was designed to carry them. You want to win? Repeat the fundamentals every day, without excuse. That's not boring. That's power. But in a world that idolizes hacks and shortcuts, simplicity is undervalued. People would rather scroll for a secret than sit with what's proven. They'd rather switch routines every week than repeat a system long enough to see results. Not you. You're here to build, and builders don't need complexity. They need consistency. So here's your blueprint. Wake up at the same time. Write down your goals. Move your body. Plan your day. Honor your word. Reflect at night. Sleep with intention. Do this until it becomes you. Not until you feel like stopping. Not until it feels automatic. Until it feels essential. Because these aren't just actions. They're instructions to your nervous system. They tell your mind, this is who I am. This is how we live now. And when repeated long enough, your brain adapts. Your thoughts align. Your decisions streamline. You start to operate from identity, not emotion. That's the goal. Not to think about discipline, but to live from it. Take the Navy SEALs. When missions go sideways, they don't rely on inspiration. They fall back on drills, the basics, repeated to the point of instinct. That's how they move under chaos. Not with flair, but with precision. You don't need to be in combat to live this way. You just need to recognize that your life has pressure points too. And in those moments, you don't rise. You return to structure, to systems, to the rhythm you've trained in silence. And that rhythm, that's your freedom. When others are scrambling, distracted, drained, you move with certainty because your day is already ordered, your actions already chosen, your outcomes already compounding. Even when it feels slow, even when it feels invisible, because that's how compounding works. Quiet, gradual, unsexy, until it's not. Until one day, everything feels different. You feel different. You don't doubt your next step. You don't spiral with setback. You just act. Not out of hype, out of habit. And that habit is forged in repetition. But here's where most people fall. They quit too soon. They confuse friction with failure. They do the basics for a week, maybe two, and wonder why nothing's changing. What they don't see is the momentum building beneath the surface, the rewiring happening in silence, the transformation that requires time to solidify. So let this be your reminder. Do not stop. Do not adjust. Do not complicate. Keep doing what works. And when it gets boring, double down. Boredom isn't a sign to change direction. It's a sign you're close to breakthrough. It's your ego begging for novelty. Don't feed it. Instead, feed your future. Because every time you repeat a powerful behavior, you cast a vote for the identity you're building. And over time, those votes turn into reality. You stop hoping for discipline. You become disciplined. Not sometimes. Not when you're in the mood. Every day. Because this isn't about performing when the stars align. It's about showing up, especially when they don't. Your baseline must be high. Your standard must be non-negotiable. Your fundamentals must be protected like your life depends on them. Because in many ways, they do. Your clarity, your confidence, your peace, your progress. All of it depends on the routines you repeat when no one's watching. So what are your basics? Define them, write them, live them. And when life gets chaotic, don't create a new system. Return to the old one. That's how professionals separate from amateurs. Amateurs pivot at every obstacle. Professionals repeat the process. Amateurs seek motivation. Professionals trust structure. Amateurs dabble. Professionals drill. You want to lead your life like a pro? Then treat your rituals with reverence. Guard your mornings. Protect your energy. Execute your plan. Again and again. Because the game isn't won by who starts the fastest. It's won by who stays the longest, who outlasts doubt, who shows up when no one else does. And that kind of staying power, it's built on the back of basics. Next, we strip away even the need for motivation. How to lead yourself with consistency when emotion fades, and how to act simply because it's who you are now. There will be days when you don't feel like it. Days when your energy is low, your thoughts are scattered, and the fire that used to burn feels like embers fading into gray. On those days, most people fall off. They wait for motivation to come back. They hope inspiration will rescue them. But the ones who win, they don't wait. They lead themselves. That's the next evolution. Not relying on energy, hype, or good weather, but acting from identity. Showing up not because you feel like it, but because it's who you are. This is the difference between amateurs and professionals, between dreamers and doers. Amateurs wait for a feeling. Professionals follow a standard, and that standard must be internal, rooted in principle, carved so deep that when your mood shifts, your movement doesn't. Because moods are liars. They come and go like weather. But your direction? That stays, if you choose it. So the work is this: uncouple your actions from your emotions. Stop needing to feel ready. Stop giving your best only when circumstances align. Stop waiting for outside forces to validate your effort. Validate it yourself, through action. Think of the elite athletes who train through exhaustion. The single parents who work 2 jobs and still make time for their kids. The creatives who write, paint, build, without anyone watching, clapping, or funding. They aren't driven by dopamine. They're driven by decision. And you must be too. So when that lazy voice creeps in, the one that says, "You can skip today," it's not a big deal. You've done enough already. Shut it down. Not with arguments, not with self-loathing, with movement. Get up, move forward. One step, one task, one rep. Because every time you act despite feeling low, you prove something powerful. You are in charge. And that proof? It compounds. It builds inner confidence that no one can take from you. The quiet kind. The unshakable kind. The kind that carries you through storms while others scramble for shelter. But to earn that trust, you have to train it. Daily, especially when it's hard. Especially when it's invisible. Especially when you don't want to. You'll never feel like it every day. So stop making your feelings the gatekeepers of your actions. Make your values the gatekeepers. Make your vision the driver. Ask yourself, what would the future me do right now? Then do it. Not perfectly, not all at once, just do it. This is what it means to be self-led. It means you don't need permission to be great. You don't need a push to move. You don't need cheering to stay committed. Your standard is the fuel. Your habits are the engine. Your identity is the guide. You're not running on emotion anymore. You're running on alignment. And the beauty is, once you live this way long enough, your feelings catch up. Discipline leads. Motivation follows. Your mood begins to trust your movement. And suddenly, what used to feel hard becomes normal. You don't have to talk yourself into effort. Effort becomes automatic. You wake up and move. You execute, then evaluate. You show up, even in silence. That's how quiet power is built. Because when others say, "I don't feel like it," you say, "It doesn't matter." Not coldly, not harshly, just with clarity. You've decided, this is who you are. This is how you operate. This is the new default. And when people ask how you're so consistent, how you always seem to be in rhythm, the answer won't be a trick. It'll be simple. I stopped needing motivation. I chose discipline. That choice will change your life. It will shift your relationships. It will shift your reputation. And most importantly, it will shift your self-respect. Because nothing feels better than knowing you can trust yourself to show up. So let others wait for motivation. You move now. You move tired. You move uncertain. You move without applause. And every time you do, you take another step toward becoming unstoppable. Not because of hype, but because of habit. Next, we expose the truth behind structure. Why discipline isn't restriction, but freedom in disguise. And how boundaries build the life most people think only talent can earn. Most people hear the word discipline and think of restriction. They imagine tight schedules, no flexibility, no joy. They picture a life that's controlled, stiff, robotic. But the truth is the opposite. Discipline is freedom. Without it, you're a slave to mood, to distraction, to impulse. Without discipline, your life belongs to everything and everyone except you. The notification gets your focus. The craving gets your body. The noise gets your mind. That's not freedom. That's slavery wrapped in convenience. So let's redefine it. Discipline is not punishment. It's permission. Permission to grow, to focus, to create, to live a life that works. It's the foundation that holds everything else in place. And without it, you'll never build anything that lasts. Think of a river. Without banks, it floods. It spreads aimlessly. But with structure, with discipline, that river carves canyons, powers cities, shapes landscapes. The container creates the power. You are the same. Your boundaries, your habits, your rules, your non-negotiables are not there to limit you. They are there to unleash you. But to see this, you have to stop measuring freedom by how much you can avoid. True freedom is not doing whatever you want. True freedom is doing what's right even when it's hard, and doing it consistently. That takes strength. That takes inner order. And order starts small. It starts with saying no when every part of you wants to say yes. It starts with choosing the gym over the couch, choosing the call over the comfort, choosing silence over scrolling, choosing alignment over amusement. And here's what happens when you do. You gain traction. You feel progress. You start to move forward not in sprints, but in solid, consistent strides. Because freedom isn't found in the breaks. It's found in the rhythm. And when your life has rhythm, everything feels clearer. You know where your energy goes. You know what gets your attention. You know what deserves your time. Suddenly, your mind isn't fractured. Your space isn't cluttered. Your priorities aren't blurred. You move lighter, straighter, faster. Discipline gave you that. And no, it's not always easy. There will be days when you want to break the structure, when the plan feels heavy, when the rules feel too tight. But here's the truth. What feels heavy now builds strength later. If you avoid pressure, you remain fragile. But if you carry it daily, you become someone no one can break. Look at those who seem free, confident, in control. Dig deeper, and you'll find routines, boundaries, codes. You'll find that behind their peace is practice. Behind their power is precision. Behind their calm is consistency, because they chose to master themselves. They don't wait for life to hand them order. They create it. And that creation, it starts with discipline. Wake up early, not because it's trendy, because it sets the tone. Plan your day, not because you're type A, because clarity matters. Move your body, not for abs, for energy, for command. Say no, not to be rude, to protect your focus. Go to bed on time, not to be boring, to recover, to prepare, to lead again tomorrow. These things are simple, but they're not easy. That's why most people don't do them, and that's why most people feel stuck. They chase flexibility, but lose direction. They want spontaneity, but spiral into chaos. They avoid rules and then wonder why nothing works. Let that not be you. Let your life be ruled by standards, not feelings. Because standards don't change when you're tired. Standards don't disappear when you're discouraged. Standards don't care about the weather, the comments, or the outcome. They hold. And when you hold yourself to them, you rise above circumstance. You rise above confusion. You rise above average. So build your life on discipline. Build a structure that supports your ambition. Then live inside it until it doesn't feel like discipline anymore. It feels like you. That's when it becomes powerful. When you stop saying, I have to, and start saying, this is who I am. That's when you don't just act with discipline, you are discipline. Next, we close the loop. How to turn this rhythm into identity, so your instincts lead you toward victory even when everything else fades. The goal isn't just to act with discipline, it's to become it. Because the highest level of transformation is when you no longer need to think about your choices. They move through you like breath, like instinct, like identity. That's when you stop trying to remember your habits, because your habits have become your nature. That's when you stop asking, what should I do today? And start doing it before the question arises. You've trained it, you've repeated it, you've become it. This is the final level, when discipline turns from effort to essence. When you no longer push yourself, you simply don't break character. And that character? It's forged through every choice you've made in silence. That's why the repetition mattered. That's why the early mornings, the small completions, the silent wins, they weren't just tasks. They were bricks, laid one by one until they became a fortress of identity that no storm can shake. And once that identity is built, you become dangerous. Not to others, but to every excuse, every distraction, every limitation you once believed was real. You don't lose time to temptation, not because it doesn't show up, but because it doesn't belong in your operating system anymore. You don't skip your values, not because you're perfect, but because your integrity has a gravitational pull. It pulls you back to center before you drift too far. You don't wait for reminders, not because you don't need them, but because your system already runs the program. You're not relying on discipline to move forward anymore. You're relying on who you are. And here's the shift most people never reach. They work hard to act like someone disciplined, but never become someone who identifies as such. So they start over, again and again. Good weeks, bad weeks, productive streaks, lazy streaks, momentum, followed by guilt. Up, down, repeat. Break that cycle. Make the leap. Own this identity completely. Say it clearly with no hesitation. I'm someone who finishes. I'm someone who leads myself. I'm someone who shows up no matter what. Not as a mantra, but as a mirror. A reflection of the life you're already living. And if you haven't lived it fully yet, that's fine. Start now, today, this moment. Because identity isn't claimed in talk. It's claimed in action, repeated until the evidence is undeniable. Think about who you've respected most in life. Was it their charisma? Their appearance? Their resume? No, it was their consistency, their certainty, their quiet excellence. The way they just kept showing up. Not loudly, not perfectly, but completely. That's what you want to become. Not someone who inspires occasionally, but someone who lives inspired. Someone whose habits build momentum long after emotions disappear. You don't need fireworks anymore. You don't need viral posts. You don't need another course, another book, another pep talk. You need one more day of living in alignment, then another, until the results aren't surprising, they're expected. Until your presence speaks louder than your voice. Until people trust you without you having to prove anything. And even more than that, until you trust yourself without needing evidence from the outside world. That's when the work becomes light. Not because it's easy, because it's you. This is the shift, the final pivot, The internal declaration that no longer waits for life to align before showing up as who you've chosen to be. You're not motivated, you're not disciplined, you're defined, and that definition radiates into your relationships, your career, your health, your impact. Every area of life bends to the person who knows who they are, so claim it. Don't drift into identity, decide it. And when doubt creeps in, as it will, return to action. Let the repetition remind you. Let the basics carry you. Let the smallest act rebuild the biggest belief. Because this is how you win now, not with force, but with flow. Not by fighting everything you're not, but by acting from everything you already are. The decision has been made. The path has been chosen. Now live it until it becomes who you've always been. There's a quiet power in someone who no longer needs to negotiate with themselves, who no longer needs external permission to move forward, who wakes up and leads, not from emotion, not from pressure, but from practice. This is where you are now. You've gone through the fire, faced the storms, removed the noise, trained through resistance. You've let go of the idea that you need motivation to act. You've stripped away the false layers and built a foundation that holds. And that foundation, it's not built on hype. It's built on repetition. The same breath, the same focus, the same daily return to structure, the same standards, honored again and again until they became second nature. And now you understand, winning isn't dramatic. It's boring. It's early mornings when you could sleep. It's finishing tasks no one claps for. It's holding a promise that no one else remembers. And it's these small, silent victories that shape the unstoppable mind. Because motivation fades, pressure comes, setbacks are inevitable. But your system holds, your discipline holds, your identity holds. You're not guessing anymore. You're not hoping anymore. You've become the kind of person who does what needs to be done, regardless of how you feel, who's watching, or what the outcome looks like today. This is freedom, not the kind that avoids rules, but the kind that thrives within them. Not the kind that waits for a break, but the kind that makes one. Your mind is no longer fragile. It's forged through decision, through repetition, through truth. And the final truth is this: victory doesn't come to the talented. It comes to the trained. So train every day. Return to the basics. Repeat the small. Honor your word. Lead without noise. And let your life speak through what you finish, not what you start. Let that be your legacy. And let it begin again tomorrow. Exactly the same way. With discipline. With action. Without needing a reason.